There we go. Welcome everybody to my first indie showcase in 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
I'm joined today by a new co-host, Holly, who goes by Solve89 on Twitch.
Hi.
And we're going to be playing Lost Orbit Terminal Velocity. And we're joined by Alex, one of the developers for the game. How's it going, Alex?
Hey, pretty good. How are you guys?
Good.
Really good.
Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's been a little while since I've chatted about the game, so it'll be good.
Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about right away, so we can continue on from 4 years ago. Tell us about Terminal Velocity.
Yeah, sounds good. So it's kind of a follow-up to the original Lost Orbit. The original one released on PS4 and Steam back in 2015, I think it was. And then after that, we kind of decided we wanted to release the game on Xbox and on Switch. So instead of just kind of porting it and releasing it as is, we decided to kind of do not really a sequel, but like a 1.5. So kind of like a mini remaster plus some additional content. So we ended up working on that for a little while. And then that just came out in July of 2019. So
That's cool.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a good time, but finally good to be done with Lost Orbit as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been quite a few of my years, but yeah, it was good.
Yeah, do you want to start getting into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Holly has never seen this game before, so
Cool.
thought it'd be fun to get somebody fresh to try it out.
Absolutely. So straight into
Awesome.
campaign, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Yeah, do it up.
Campaign.
Right now, you can just do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so once you beat that, then you'll get the new epilogue that we added.
All right.
This has one of my favorite narratives. Yeah.
He was as good as dead when I came across him, running through the motions of his tedious job. He may as well have been. I hadn't seen a sign of life in Jens. It was a rare treat to see some new creature waddle its way through space, but they never lasted long. He worked maintenance, traveling to the fringes of known space, patching up communications relays. They used to send drones out, but sending these poor bastards proved to be much easier on the wallet. Now there's a fine line between brave and stupid, and this guy wasn't anywhere near it. Out in deep space in a tin can with the thick musk of recycled air, he was a worker bee who didn't see the big picture.
Oh no.
He sat perched on that comm relay for spans. Couldn't quite come to grips with what had just happened. He didn't have a hope in hell without his ship. He scavenged himself an improvised set of equipment. At the time, I wondered where exactly he thought he was going to go.
All right.
The game looks great. Like, I played it on
wow.
the PlayStation when it came out as well, as, you know, a couple of times with you guys. And then a few dozens of hours on my own.
Awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'll warn you too, Holly, the last time I played this, I did it for YouTube, and I went on a huge tangent. It went deep, so enjoy it.
Okay.
Enjoy the ride.
I always
Cool, yeah.
enjoy the ride.
Controls take some getting used to, but once you get
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've never bet on anything. But if there was anyone around, my first would have been that he'd be dead before he made it 100 tracks.
Haha. So there. I'm totally gonna make it further than that.
So what have you guys been up to since Lost Orbit?
Quite a bit of stuff. We've been working on some new titles, I suppose, in the background, but we do a lot of outsourcing and then contract work for other people, so we've worked on quite a few things in between. We worked on Starlink with Ubisoft. I don't know if you guys have played Starlink at all.
Yeah, I was actually really excited for that one. I did not know you guys worked on that.
Yeah, we just did like a couple ships and some little pieces of art there. Just like a small contract, but yeah, that was cool. And we worked with a bunch of different indies and things like that to put out some other games. So we've kept busy.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, internally we've been working on some other stuff too. Hopefully, be able to share some things pretty soon. Lost Orbit took up quite a bit of our time. In between contracts and whatnot. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. You know how it goes. You can work when you can in between doing the things that pay the bills and.
Yeah, plugging away though. That's cool. I missed the Starlink. I was trying to get the one with the R-Wing and the Star Fox for the Switch.
Yeah, we have those ones at work. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Distances.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
They were designed for ships.
I know. We didn't even know we were like they even had the
They
Star
didn't tear
Fox
them
stuff when
apart.
we started working on it, and it was just super exciting. I was like, oh shit, we're working on a Star Fox game.
Yeah, that's Nintendo's really good that way. I found they've been surprising a lot of the smaller developers that work on the games that way.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I mean, even they're pretty chummy with Ubisoft, it seems. And,
Yeah.
works out pretty well. I mean, I like all the titles they've kind of released together. So Starlink was great, and the whatever it's called, the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom game, it's pretty awesome too. I don't know if you guys have played that one. Yeah.
That's another game that I used to have on the show all the time, Brawlhalla. They got picked up by Ubisoft as well, so I'm glad to see.
Oh, did they
Ubisoft.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they've kind of exploded on the console scene too, so I was happy to see that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know they got picked up by them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always nice to see.
And yeah, for the people in chat, if you want to pick it up, this game is on Steam. Lost Orbit, the Terminal Velocity has some extra content, and I would also suggest picking up the soundtrack. It's one of my favorite soundtracks for games.
Yeah, we're big fans too.
What?
What are your initial thoughts, Holly?
I'm really, really enjoying it. It's interesting because I typically don't like games to do with space and stuff, but really enjoying this. I like that this little character, even though you can't see his face, you guys have given him a fair amount of personality, and it's making me feel some empathy for him being lost in space.
Yeah, it was pretty fun trying to kind of develop him and his relationship with the narrator that you're kind of hearing there, and the epilogue afterwards kind of expands a little bit on the story about him and kind of what happens after the game. So yeah, we dig it, and we got a lot of good feedback from people about the narrative and stuff. I think a lot of people were surprised from
connection to
the type of game that it is, because eventually it gets pretty twitchy and fast, but
Yeah.
I think people were pretty surprised, like, oh hey, there's actually a pretty cool story in here too, not just
fractured my
a
neural
lot of
net
death and
and
speed.
gave me a nasty scar across my lens.
I know that's a really important thing for me as a gamer. I rarely ever play games for the skill involved. I like the story.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a big thing for a lot of people these days, I think that's the cool thing about the games industry these days, is that you don't really have to like a super challenging or crazy game, and you can still enjoy something out of it. And even with this game, it's hard in many places, but you can kind of do it at your own pace, and if you really like the story, it's still beatable and doable and enjoyable, even if you don't like the twitchiness of it. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
One thing I'm curious about with this, in the development process for you guys, did you guys marry the gameplay to like a narrative that you had in mind, or vice versa?
It was kind of vice versa. I
Everything's
think
gotta die.
we started out
But this
trying to
poor
make
guy
a
with
smaller
nothing to
game
live
that
for,
was more gameplay
He
focused.
wasn't going easy.
I mean,
I guess he
initially
figured
it
he
started
hadn't
out
had a chance to
something
live
as something
yet.
pretty small that we thought we could do in a short
Maybe
amount of
we were
time,
more
and
alike
then
than I thought.
I think the narrative got a little carried away, and it made the game a little bit bigger than we intended it to be. Initially it was just supposed to be like a twitchy level-based, you know, gameplay focused kind of game, and then eventually we kind of ended up writing the story, and we kind of liked the characters, and it kind of evolved from there, which took much longer to develop, but we're pretty happy with the results too. So
I told myself.
but
it was
yeah,
only a
I don't know.
matter
It's
of
kind of
time
funny how game
before he'd be
development goes,
dead
you
and
know.
I'd be on my way.
Yeah, I
only
really
we were that
enjoy
simple.
hearing where people kind of start with their games and which parts kind of decide the next parts of development.
Yeah, I mean, different people start with different things. Some people are gameplay focused first. Some people are narrative focused, or art focused, or
Surprisingly, he
something
was
like
keeping a
that.
decent pace.
And then usually one of the other
I
ones
kept my
kind of seeps in there. But
Listening to his
yeah, everybody kind of has their own ways
Damn, I'm
of
starving.
starting off a game,
I'd
right?
give my left nut for the crust of
For
a burnt
sure.
fry pan.
What was the most surprising thing that you guys kind of learned from Lost Orbit as a team?
That's a good question. I mean, it was our very first game, so we didn't really know what to expect releasing our own title. So obviously, from the businessy game development kind of side of things, it was definitely the marketing side of things and promotion and stuff like that, and how terrible we were at it, and how we needed help with it. So that was very surprising and a big learning curve for us. And then I think also just that aspect of kind of getting carried away with an idea was a big learning curve for us too, because as an indie and you can kind of always say to yourself, well, we could add this, let's make it better, let's take more time, and eventually you end up working on a game for 4 years. And I think a lot of what we've learned is, hey, let's try and keep a scope and try and get a game done a little bit faster and not necessarily spend all of our time on one game. Which, I mean, I don't really regret with Lost Orbit. I definitely think we probably should have got it out faster, but it's one of those learning curves, right?
Yeah, for sure.
As an indie, you just want to keep adding more things or try different things or expand the game in some way, and I think eventually you have to just say, no, okay, we're happy with the game, let's just try and ship it.
Yeah, I find that can be one of the hardest parts of it too, is like, we could add this, we could add this, we could add a million different types of things. So I know a lot of the developers I talk to have used like playtesting or even just like advice from family to see.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I was gonna say, how did you guys kind of connect with your audience, or did you guys do any playtesting? And also, I forgot to tell you, this game's actually pretty gory.
It's okay, it's better when people find it out on their own.
I love it.
Yeah, that was probably one of our favorite things making this game, was going to shows and showing it to people and not telling them about that side of things and seeing their like first reaction of him smashing into something, and then going back to the office and being like, okay, well, how else can we kill him to kind of get an expression or a reaction. So,
Oh, that was a rough one.
I died.
and the epilogue has brand new ways to die too, so that was one of our things. We're like, okay, well,
All
what
new ways to die.
mechanics can we add that would be, that would allow us to kill him in different ways? I won't spoil it for you, but yeah, you get to see a whole new,
We're gonna
whole
pause
new
for
part
just
of
a
him.
second.
Oh, we can do it right there. We'll do it like that. There. Sorry, you were saying.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good. No, it's all good. Actually, so to your original question about reaching out to our kind of fans and audience and testing and stuff. So we obviously have a lot of game dev friends that we got feedback on or from, that we let play the game pretty early and then kind of let us know. But I also work at a college here in Niagara Falls, so we were able to kind of utilize some of the game development students and the community that we're trying to develop here to host kind of little test fest sessions where we'd invite people, get some feedback, get them to let us know what they think about the game and kind of watch them play and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was a good experience to kind of see what people liked and didn't like, and
Interesting.
yeah.
I'm
And
not
then we
super
did lots
surprised.
of shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's. I'm happy to hear there was a lot of playtesting too, because like the game has enough polish. Like it feels like the gameplay itself, the fun factor in it is really high, and it's super polished. So I'm not surprised to hear that you guys held some playtesting events.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, one of the things we really found out from game testing and just taking it to shows and stuff like that is it's a really niche game, right? It's definitely not a game for everybody in many ways. I think you can find things to like about it and find some charm in it, but if you don't like the controls and you don't like eventually how fast it is and how twitchy it is, it's probably not the game for you eventually. So we kind of knew going in that our market was pretty tight and pretty small, but we kind of decided to stick with that as opposed to making it a little bit more casual, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that came from game testing too. You go to PAX or a local con and you get a bunch of people coming by and they're not, they don't get it and they're kind of frustrated with the controls. And then once in a while you get somebody that comes by and they just instantly are amazing at it. And you're like, cool, we're making the game for you specifically, and that's always a good feeling, right? When you have the game and somebody picks it up and they're like, yeah, this is perfect for what I like to play. And that's a cool feeling.
Oh, that's new.
Oh my gosh.
Love that.
Oh yeah, we did add some new stuff.
Yeah.
Into the older.
Oh no!
So you've been playing this for long enough now, Holly.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we hosted Lost Orbit in the past, they'd always make fun of me if I didn't have the right trigger squeeze the entire time.
It's
Oh.
true. You gotta if you just go fast and not think about it, it's like a weird. You just gotta zone out.
Yeah.
Hope for the
Fast
best.
as you can.
All right.
Okay, so you gotta hold A and
Ah!
A trigger. Yeah.
Oh my god.
See how you can get like a super boost
There you
on
go.
these too. Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm really interested to hear. I like that you guys have kind of kept it to a tight audience, that you like the target demographic, right?
Yeah.
That's adorable. I'm wondering, has that influenced you guys in the future of what you're doing with game development?
Yeah, in some ways, when we kind of first set out to make Lost Orbit, we, like most, I think, indie devs, we just wanted to do whatever the heck we kind of wanted, and whatnot. And kind of going forward, we obviously still want to make games that we really love, but we've also kind of learned a lot more about the industry and actually shipping a game. So there's a little bit more thought about, can we market this new game? Is there people that are actually going to want this game as opposed to just making a game that we want for the sake of wanting a game? So we've definitely learned a lot from Lost Orbit in that sense. It was fun making a game for a really small niche market, but that also has its challenges, and especially like seeking a publisher or people to kind of partner with. If going up to somebody and be like, okay, we have a game that doesn't really fit in any genre, that we can't really tell you what it's like because it's not really like any other type of game. That's kind of a scary thing to hear for a publisher.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
we've definitely learned a lot of that kind of stuff where, yeah, let's make a game we really love, but also a game we can explain to people and not have to make up a genre like we did for Lost Orbit.
Interesting. I'm sure you've shared some of the same worries that Edmund McMillan did when they were launching Super Meat Boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
it
made
was-
it through. Threaded the needle.
Oh, impressive.
So, one question from chat. Angelus Bojangs asks, in the early stages of development, what were some of the issues or challenges with the game?
Good question. I think the biggest challenges we had in early development was actually just finding a team. We, myself and Chris started the company, and we were both environment artists from kind of the AAA side of things.
Yeah.
So primarily, you know,
it shows with the color palette.
oh, thank you. So, primarily it's kind of hard to start a game with just artists because you kind of need somebody to program and, and do other things. So a lot of the big challenges early on was finding people to work with, and, not having the money to necessarily pay for a full-time, super senior developer to join on board. So finding people that were like-minded and having them, be happy working at an indie studio. So that's been a challenge basically throughout our whole career, is just building a team and getting established and stuff like that. So on that side, that was probably one of the more challenging things. And then on the game development side of things, I think it was just kind of exploring the game and finding it. You kind of set out making one type of game, and then you end up finding the fun in the thing that you're making, and then trying to follow that into making something even better. I think is always like a big challenge, but also kind of a really exciting part about game development too.
This is definitely getting more difficult.
Oh, this is just level 2.
Yeah.
I know.
We got actually, if you want, so one of the things we added for the new edition, and I think they're unlocked already, I don't think we locked them out, is we have challenge levels that are 20 times harder than any other level in the game. So they're meant to be frustratingly hard for people that really like the game and are really crazy good at it. So if you feel like it, you can check one of those out. But I know some of the guys at the company couldn't beat a few of the levels I made, so
Oh snap!
they were just like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "It's for the 3 people that are really gonna like these kind of levels. They're gonna like these."
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's keeping that initial audience in mind too, right? That's awesome.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's always a few people that are just super good at it, and I'm really hooked. Hey, you're getting really good at this.
We'll definitely check that out before we're done today.
Sweet.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yay. I'm really
that's okay.
good at difficult games.
Oh my gosh, is a good expression for our game.
yeah, that's very true.
That's one of the more polite things people have yelled while playing.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
That's
goodness.
Those spinny metal circles were actually added in one of the challenge levels, and we really like them. So we kind of went back and added them to some of the older levels in kind of a simpler form, just to kind of let people practice with them and kind of learn the new mechanic. But there's challenge levels where they're just filled with those, and they're all interlocking, and you gotta weave in and out of all the moving mechanical pieces.
That sounds awful.
Yes.
But amazing.
Awesome.
Oh. Ah.
It's funny, actually, this re-release is actually a little bit easier than the original game. We did actually polish out a few things that made people rage quite a bit. So
Yeah.
there was just a few, polish items from just people playing the original one with certain timing of things and certain exploding asteroids that we polished out or removed and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more forgiving, but not much.
Well, on behalf of people that are not skilled at gaming, let me just say thank you.
Now, you know what? This is one of those games where if you played it for a few hours, you would get really good at it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things you just kind of feel out, and then you kind of zone out and don't really realize what you're doing anymore, and it's just kind of just happening around you.
It's like the best example of frantically relaxing I've seen in a video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's a good term. Yeah.
That just sounds like my life at this point.
I think that's just everybody's life right now during all this.
Right?
Oh, man.
We have all this time and we're kind of relaxing, but it's kind of also super stressful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I hear that.
Oh.
Have you guys as a team kept in touch during quarantine and all that stuff, or are
Yeah,
you
yeah. No, we're all working from home, so we we're on Discord every day, and we have meetings every few days and stuff like that. So productivity's actually been pretty good. The first week was, it took a little bit of getting used to and stuff like that, but it's actually been pretty good. So it's nice thing about game devs, like we love being in the office and being able to just chit chat, but we could do our work from home just fine.
Yeah, fair enough. I know another one of my friends that I've had on the show was doing Ludum Dare to keep himself occupied, and he streams his coding as well.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to watch. Another question from chat is, what art programs and coding platforms did you guys use for this game?
Oh, cool. Okay. So we this is done in Unity Engine. I think when we first started the original Lost Orbit, it was like Unity 3 or something. So it was quite a long time ago. This new version, I think, was Unity 2017 or something like that. And then it's all in just C# and whatnot. So I think the guys just used, Visual Studio or whatever. On the art side, we use 3D Max, mainly just because that's what we were trained on and you're really comfortable with. But some of the guys use Blender and then standard things like Substance and Photoshop as far as our programs go.
Interesting. That's I have one of my partners is getting into coding right now, and they keep coming back to, they've been on Game Maker and they're looking at Unity and asking a bunch of questions about Unity, which, yes, every game is made on Unity.
It's true, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. What was that?
I don't know. What was it, Nick?
Mysteries.
This is when you got...
Is that a donut?
That's a donut. Or a
my
bagel.
God.
I think it was a bagel.
I don't remember. I think it's called a donut in the game. It's, whatever your heart desires.
Yeah, fair. I saw the pear. I said, get it for Animal Crossing.
Hey, I already got my pears in Animal Crossing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my wife's been going hard at that the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so have we. It's been a pretty intense competition between Nick and I because we live together, and I'll
nice.
come downstairs going, by the way, I got this fruit, or I caught this fish, and then it's him hopping on to see if he can do it too.
That's amazing.
Oh, here's another fun question for you. 2. From chat, do you intend to use the new render pipelines or DOTS at a later date?
Yeah, so the new games we're working on, we're actually on the HD pipelines already, which I really, really love. So we were working on kind of like a twin stick shooter for a long time, which we put on hold for a little while. Just it was getting a little too big and too out of hand for the team size that we had, a little too ambitious. So we kind of put that on hold for a bit. But we used the HD pipeline for that, and then we're working on a new game right now that is also using that, which I really love. It's super optimized, and I really like a lot of the new additions that they have as far as lighting goes and particle systems and stuff. As far as dots, I have to ask one of my programmers. It's a little over my head as far as what they want to use for all that stuff, but definitely love the HD pipeline. And then we've worked on a bunch of contracts for different developers in Unity that have used the HD pipeline, which I've really enjoyed as well. We've done a couple ArcViz kind of projects in there and whatnot. But we've also kind of worked with every engine. We did a Lumberyard project recently, and we did a Unreal project last year. So we kind of dabble in a whole bunch of different things.
Interesting. Unreal is another one that I love how that game development company kind of flipped the script when they started releasing their engines. But that's one that I've always really enjoyed.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's what I started learning back in school, and that was the first engine that I got. I remember it came with Unreal Tournament back when I was in high school, and it blew my mind that they were just giving away this engine with this game, and I was like, oh my god, I get to mod stuff and check out how games are made from this game, and that's super exciting. Um, but yeah, those guys are doing some amazing stuff too. And Unreal's always been super cool. So
Yeah.
and then Lumberyard's kind of interesting too. If you guys ever want to try that out, if any game devs are out there, it's free as well, and it's based on the Cry engine. So they're doing a lot of good stuff.
sweet.
I think it's still early on, but it's pretty solid.
Yeah, that's the Cry engine. That's another one I love too. Again,
Yes.
like let's make a game, show off our tech, and then be like, oh, and by the way, our engine is here too.
Yeah, and Amazon like bought the Cry engine from them, but
I
not
did
exclusively.
not know that.
Yeah, so Lumberyard is based off of Cry, I believe, and then they like purchased it and then like started working from it to release their own engine, which I don't really understand business-wise how any of that works, but yeah, I don't know.
Ooh.
So, anyways, yeah, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. One question again from chat. This is a heavy game dev day, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, sweet.
How did the other engines you've tried compare to Unity, in your opinion?
So I've worked quite extensively in Unreal for quite a long time before we switched to Unity, and then we've done a few projects in there as well. And definitely Unreal is it's an older engine in good and bad ways. It's great because it has way more features than Unity. Their terrain stuff is amazing. Their lighting stuff has been way better than Unity for a very long time. And as an artist, like I always told my students, like, if you make something, just throw it in Unreal. It'll just look good. You know, like you don't really have to do any setup. You know, in Unity you have to do quite a bit of lighting and post-process setup for your stuff to look pretty solid. In Unreal, you just throw something in and it looks great. So if you really know engines and are getting to be a bit more of an intermediate or pro, jumping into Unreal is pretty exciting, and it's a lot easier to use than it's ever been. They have a lot more tutorials and asset store stuff too, so it's quite nice. Unity is still our favorite in terms of just workflow and stuff like that. It's really light, but it's also starting to get pretty AAA in many regards. Like some of the new stuff that we've been working on in terms of our own projects and client projects have looked pretty damn awesome. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you made this in Unity?" You know, that's always the joke, right? So I personally still love Unity in terms of workflow and ease of use and how light it is. I think our programmers really like the quick turnaround they can do in there as well. I think Unreal is still mainly C++ based, or C++ based, so that's a kind of a bit of a different workflow. And then Amazon, we've never actually developed like a game from scratch in Amazon. Oh, this is stuck by a foot.
Yeah, right.
We've never developed like a full game in Amazon, so I can't really speak too much to its programming side of things or full development side of things. But on the art side, they're doing a lot of things really well. Their lighting is pretty decent. Their post is looking quite nice. They have a lot of really cool time of day stuff. If you're planning on making like an outdoor game, Lumberyard is pretty great for that. Again, really great time of day system, really great volumetric lighting and dynamic GI kind of stuff, which is really cool. But with Amazon, like they're still like, in my opinion, pretty far off from being like a fully usable game engine unless you have a pretty large team to handle all the kind of shortcomings of it. So it seems like there's still a lot missing, and you would need a lot of code support to get some functionality and even art to look the way you want it to look. So I like it, but it's not something I think I would use at this point.
It's interesting. Lumberyard is something I'll definitely have to bring up.
Yeah, check it out. And it's with Amazon, so they do have a lot of really cool stuff that other engines don't. Like they have all the web service stuff integration, and they actually have, I think they're working on like a full Twitch integration with the engine as well. So if you want to make your game to be easily streamable through Twitch, I think you could build that in through some of their APIs that they have, which is pretty cool.
That actually doesn't surprise me very much, and I'm very excited for that. Another question from chat. Not sure if it was already asked, but what was the hardest thing encountered while making Lost Orbit?
What was the hardest thing encountered making? I guess it kind of depends how how you want to look at it. As far as development goes, again, I think the hardest thing we went through is trying to explain the game to people. I think a lot of people, when they first saw it, they assumed it was a mobile game just because it looked like a scroller, like an endless runner or scroller kind of thing. So we're like, no, it's not a mobile game. And then a lot of people are like, oh, well, like, do you shoot stuff? What do you kill? And I'm like, well, you don't. You just like dodge things and
It's one of the things
not
I like
die.
the most, actually.
Yeah, and we like it too, right? And you know, we end up calling it a dodge 'em up because it's kind of like a shoot 'em up, but with no guns. And I think that was one of the hardest things because like it looks cool and it pretty in a screenshot in a video, but I think you don't really get it. You know, it's just this like little sperm dude floating around, and you know, from a top-down point of view, and he's just tiny on screen, and you know, watching someone play it just kind of looks like you're moving around these asteroids and not doing too much. So trying to convince people that it was a unique and interesting and kind of a fast-paced game eventually was really hard. And it still is, you know, it's one of those things where people have to play it to really kind of understand it. It's a really hard thing to show or talk about. So that was probably the most difficult thing that we had in development, which was funny, which was not really on the development side of things.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like making the game was actually not that hard, you know. I built most of the levels myself, like gameplay wise. You know, that was pretty easy, just a lot of game testing and lots of game playing, and art for us wasn't very hard just because that's what we've been doing our whole lives. But yeah, so that was hard. And then I think the hardest part for our team was just releasing the game. You know, it didn't do very well, so I think that was a pretty big morale hit on the team. My business partner Chris, who started the company with me, he ended up leaving after the game came out, like the original game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he went back to school, and then he's still kind of part of the company. Like he still owns part of the company, and you know, we chat and stuff like that. But as far as game development goes, I think, you know, he just wanted to do something else after that.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, it's hard, right? I mean, it's an indie game. Most indie games are going to do terribly, even if they're awesome or pretty good, right? So I was kind of prepared for that, and you know, I was kind of okay with it. But it's always crappy. You know, you spend 2-3 years of your life on something, and it doesn't do great. It's a hard thing to get through, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's even like 3 or 4 years ago, becoming like an indie game developer was the fastest growing industry like in the world. So there is a lot of competition that you have to think about going into it.
Yeah, I think they said on Steam there was like 10,000 games or something that came out in 2019. It was some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, just insane. And that's...
Yeah. I think when the original Lost Orbit released, we were on the up-and-coming page, not even the new and trending page, because that's hard to get on.
Yeah.
We were up on the new and coming page for like maybe 8 hours before we got pushed down because new games came out.
Holy
I think when this game came out, I think we were on there for about 20 minutes on the first page.
Oh my god, that's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So discoverability is hard, right? You know, you gotta find a way to market your game and get people to know, you know, what you're making, right?
Yeah.
And
No, it's
convince
always the
them
difficult,
to spend their money. So.
always that difficult part for sure.
And that's why we wanted to do the Switch and Xbox port, just because we felt there wasn't as many indies on there as on Steam, obviously. So we thought we had a little bit of a better chance to get some exposure, but and that helped. It definitely helped. You know, the consoles were the place where our game sold the best, just because I think there was not as many releases as Steam.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and that's natively having a controller. I find this game plays a lot better on a controller, so it's weird.
Yes.
When we grabbed it for the PS4, I knew it felt great, it looked great, and it's nice tight controls too, right? So
Yeah.
well, that's
Yeah,
even if
don't
you're-
play with a keyboard. I mean, you can play with a keyboard, and we've had people beat it, but I'm still amazed that anybody can, because
Yeah.
it's not good times.
I was really stubborn back in the day and 110%ed Super Meat Boy on a
Oh, wow.
on a MacBook.
Wow, good for you. My
Thank
God.
you. And if anybody in chat is wanting this game, I will post a link to it, but it's Canadian pricing, but it's $12 about on Steam for Lost Orbit Terminal Velocity.
Yeah, and if you wait, I think 2 weeks, it'll be on sale. So
Oh, perfect.
Spoiler. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh.
Fun announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, just going back to one of the things we touched on earlier, the fact that you don't have to kill anything in this game. Oh my gosh!
And yet it's still so gory.
Sorry. As a parent, it's something that I really appreciate because I have 5 children, actually. 3 are boys, and one of them is very much obsessed with video games. And his first question anytime we are playing any video game is, do you have to kill that? Are you going to beat that guy? And it can get a little emotionally draining as a parent to have your kid constantly talking about killing stuff. And it is a really big part of gaming culture. So was that intentional to design a game where it's not about killing things? Or did it just kind of happen that way?
Yeah, I think it was a little intentional. I think we wanted to do something. Like, I'm a big Mario Kart fan. I love racing games, but I also like kind of Super Meat Boy games as well. So we kind of wanted to do almost a mix of those two things, where it's like a racing / trying not to die game.
Yeah.
And obviously the game is not, family friendly because like there's lots of gore and a little bit of strong language in there. But we did want to do something a little bit different than your typical,
It's not like playing Call of
conflict-based
Duty.
game.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. Like I teach game design at the college over here in Niagara Falls, and that's one of the like a talk that we have is when you're coming up with an idea, it doesn't have to be about conflict. Most games are because it's easy. It's easy to think of quests and missions and things to do, but just going, go kill these people, go do destroy this and all that. So. It is interesting, and I know what you mean about having like your kids ask that all the time too. It's kind of interesting. So we one of the few stories, if you guys don't mind me going on a little tangent, but the first time we showed the game at PAX back in 2014 or something like that, I always have a few stories that I remember, and one was this like little boy that came up and he was playing the game, or he was gonna play the game, and I always tell the parents, like, hey, just so you know, like, it's a pretty colorful game, but it's also kind of gory and there's blood. Like, it's cartoony, but just so you know. And the mom's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. He plays like Call of Duty or whatever. He was like 7, so he's playing it, and all he was doing was just smashing into asteroids on purpose just to see all the different like ways to die. And his mom was like, no, come on, like, you're supposed to like dodge things and like get further. And he's like, no, this is awesome. And he just stayed at our booth for about 20 minutes, just smashing into asteroids.
Yeah.
And his mom's like, I don't think the goal is to die. And he was just like, whatever.
He had fun with it, though.
Yeah, he liked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that way.
You're right though about that. It's a huge part of gamer culture. I remember when the first Deus Ex game came out, and it was like one of the first big open world games that had moral choices in it. And I remember just being like dumbfounded by the fact that I could go through this game, I don't have to kill them. And it's like, even with the guns, I took a tranquilizer so I could be like non-lethal in the game. And the fact that that's a novelty, I think, I wish it wasn't a novelty, I wish that there was more focus on like non-violent games, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Or games where you can build tension in different ways.
Well, especially when you're considering a lot of games where we're not looking at a dynamic where we're killing everything. We're looking at games like Animal Crossing, stuff like that, and they're very cartoony, they're very childish and silly, and I mean, I enjoy playing them. But when you get to the more quote-unquote adult games, it's almost always about killing, and that's really where the novelty comes in with Deus Ex and stuff like that, is suddenly you don't have to kill everything.
Yeah.
And so moving away from the silly, more childish side, keeping it adult and not having you need to kill everything, that's definitely quite a novelty.
Yeah, and I think we've gotten better as a games industry for that. There's definitely a lot more options out there for the types of gamers, like playing story-driven games where you just walk around and explore a story and try and just discover that side of it, and I definitely think there is more of that, and seeing the success of something like Animal Crossing and indie games like Stardew Valley, where people just want to farm and live their lives. It's kind of it's interesting that I think we are getting better at the industry of exploring some of that, and even with Deus Ex, like having morality and choices like that of using the medium to kind of explore of, you know, why do we want to kill so many things, or should we, or is there consequences to it? I think that's pretty cool. You know, even seeing like where God of War went from being this like ultra bro violence for violence sake game to being like you know, a more story driven serious game is pretty interesting, you know.
Here are your moral consequences for all the past games.
yeah.
So we have 3 questions in chat.
Cool.
I'll probably fire them off to you because I think I know one of the answers anyway. Are there any details on the next games you're making that the public is allowed to know? What are the games you are currently obsessed with? And are there any games you always go back to for inspiration when making your own games?
Cool. Wow, those are good questions. So right now, like I said, we were working on this twin stick shooter that didn't really. Well, I mean, it's good. We like it, but it kind of got a little out of hand as far as scope and stuff like that. So we're taking a little break on that. And we're working on some new stuff, which we're hopefully going to announce soonish.
We'll have to keep in touch.
Yeah. This should be a pretty good year for us as far as announcing stuff, I think. We have a lot of kind of things in the ether right now as the announcements go, so should be pretty cool. And then games that I'm currently obsessed with. Well, I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy VII Remake right now.
Oh my god, I am obsessed.
Yeah, I really like it. So I've been playing that a lot. And I really, it's funny, like I love the original, obviously, and it's cool seeing it with, you know, the new snazzy art and stuff like that. But I really love the combat. I know a lot of people were kind of bummed out that it wasn't fully turn-based and stuff like the original, but I really love the mix of hack and slash and RPG elements, so I'm really having a good time with that.
I think it's something that like Square has been trying to experiment with for a good number of years and a good number of games, and they finally kind of caught the bead of like, again, the fun factor. I find that of just rolling around this cloud and just cranking stuff has been very fun.
Yeah, really fun. Yeah. So I've been playing a lot of that recently. Oh, also FYI, just for Lost Orbit, you can upgrade your stuff too. So I don't think you've upgraded for a while. So if you want to go like 8 times as fast, you can do that.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
I also threw it on challenge mode.
Yeah, go to booster speed. Just crank that up.
Just doing all the booster.
So that one's just fuel. So that's just how long you can go for.
Yep.
And then there's also speed if you want to go really fast, which is also great. Anyways, yeah, I'm playing a lot of that right now. I don't even know what I was playing before. Did I?
It's been a good year for games. Like,
it has, yeah.
Being stuck inside sucks, but at least the releases have been great.
It's true, and I've gotten to catch up on some titles too, which is nice. I played through Control and Hellblade and what was the other game I bought? I don't know, some other game too. I've been playing a lot. I played a few indie games too. I played Katana Zero. Did you play that one?
I've got it on the Switch. I really enjoy that one.
Oh my god, I love it so much. It's actually funny you're talking about making a game that's not violent. I also really enjoy crazy violent games, which is funny.
Hotline Miami, man.
Yeah, Hotline Miami and Katana Zero, which is really funny.
Yep.
And I like them more just for the twitchiness, not necessarily like the violence, but it's just easy to make violent games. So. And
I will say, as much as I spout about how violence, like, we need to pull back on it sometimes, when it's a novelty, like, that's my favorite VR game is one called Gorham. Yeah, arena combat, and it's novelty gore purposefully.
Yeah.
It's fun sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And it's games, right? It's escapism. You do whatever you like, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy violent games too. It's nice to see the difference.
Yeah. Sometimes I want to kick back with some Mirror's Edge.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. And then the last question was, what games do I go back to for inspiration? It's kind of funny. I have a weird mixed bag of games that I really enjoy. I really love Mario Kart. I still play quite a bit of Mario Kart whenever I can.
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah. Like I played Deluxe a lot. Actually, I had kids. I had a son 2.5 years ago, and then another son last year.
Oh, congrats!
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But Mario Kart, I think, took the biggest hit with having kids. I have a lot of time to play games, but you can't play Like, it's really hard to play a competitive game when, you know, you have a kid running up to you and like wanting
Oh, yeah.
attention, and you have to, you know, pause, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, dude, I'm just trying to get a good time in this time trial. Could you not? You know, you can't really do that. So.
I feel that's so hard.
Oh my god.
I've
Or like
noticed
I
that-
used to play a lot of Rocket League for a couple years,
Oh,
and I
so good.
can't play that at home. Like, we play that in the office. But yeah, you can't play an online game with like a little kid, because, you know, if you got to pause, you're toast, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I've noticed in the last couple of years my attention span has gotten a lot shorter too, where it's like my favorite genre used to be MMOs, and I'd spend thousands of hours building characters and that kind of thing. And nowadays I'm much happier doing like 15-minute run in a roguelike than I am with delving as deeply into something as I used to be.
For sure, eh? Like, I feel the same way. I like my RPGs and stuff still, but I definitely pick and choose which RPG I play and how often, because it's hard to put that much time into it sometimes, right? So
Yeah,
I'm the same way. I'll usually play like a whole bunch of indie games or smaller games, and then I'll pick like a big AAA game to try and play through, or something that I know will be longer.
yeah, yeah.
It's tough.
I had a friend lend me Octopath Traveler not long ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I got through like the third intro for characters in that game, and I was already like 10 hours into it, and I was like, nope,
Yeah,
nope.
yeah. I kind of felt that way too. You're like, I get it.
Yeah, I
got
can
the
see
gist.
why people
Yeah.
enjoy this.
Yeah, sometimes a game is just too much, you know.
Yeah,
It's a lot. We bought it when it was new, my fiance and I, and it was pretty overwhelming. I definitely can agree with Nick on the fact that my attention span as a gamer has come down quite a bit as I've gotten older, and that game was just too much. There was just
Yeah.
too much going on.
It's just too much to do, you know. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Going back to the other question too, I'm a huge Nintendo fan. I always go back to Nintendo games. You know, I love my PS4 exclusives and AAAs and all that stuff too, and indie games. But there's just something always special about a Nintendo game for me. You know, a lot of times they're just perfect. You know, they're just gameplay focused, and sometimes just have also like an awesome story or atmosphere. But yeah, I don't know. I'm always a sucker for a Nintendo game. So.
yeah. That's I was a Nintendo boy growing up too. I didn't want to do the new Animal Crossing because I had it on GameCube, and it like sucked up months of my life, and I knew
Yeah.
it was going to happen again, and it is absolutely happening again. But I'm always a sucker for Nintendo.
Yeah, it's hard not to be. You know, their games are just excellent.
Yeah.
I know a really big thing for a lot of game developers is that sense of nostalgia. Just to reference talking about Nintendo here, because I think for a lot of gamers and developers, we all grew up on these games. Is there any aspect of this game, thanks Nick, that was inspired by anything that makes you feel nostalgic for gaming? Like, was it inspired by some Nintendo or maybe something else?
That's a good question. I think part of it is Mario Kart. You know, I played far too much Mario Kart growing up too on the Super Nintendo and whatnot. So
Yes.
doing the kind of, you know, left-right movement and dodging stuff, I think has always been my jam. I also really like F-Zero, so I think that was part of a nostalgia trip too, to try and make a game that you can play really fast and whatnot.
I definitely see more F-Zero in this than I do Mario Kart.
yeah, it's definitely more F-Zero than Mario Kart. But yeah, that's probably the biggest kind of nostalgia trip for this game. We kind of just tried doing something, you know, as like a Pixelnauts original as we could, in that sense. But definitely some of the stuff we're working on these days is definitely a little bit more nostalgia focused than, well, you just went through that rock. Than you know, maybe we typically do. But I think nostalgia is always a strong thing, right? Everybody always looks to something that brought them into the games industry and wants to improve on it, or you know, even redo it and do their own take on it. So
Where did that
For
come
sure.
from? Sorry.
Delving a little more into that too, we're running up on. We got like time for another question or two. One thing I wouldn't mind touching on is you're talking about like trying to make something original, which when you're looking at 2019 and Steam has 10,000 indie games come out in 1 year, do you have any tips for prospective developers about building a game to try and capture something that would be original?
It's hard, eh? Like originality is I mean, in many ways it's a little overrated because I say this game is original, but I mean I'm sure there's things that we got from other games that we may not even realize, or other mediums and stuff like that, right? And even this game, like, it references a ton of movies and video games and TV shows that we liked. So as far as being original, I mean, the thing I always tell my students is there a game that you really liked, or even a part of a game that you really liked, even if it was a bad game? And just think about how you would do it. If you really love a mechanic, what did you hate about it? How would you change it? What would you do to make it your own? And there's nothing wrong with that, I think, is, taking something you love and trying to do your own spin on it. A lot of indie devs have been super successful taking games that they love from their childhoods and just making modern and great versions of it. And that, they're still original in their own regards. Even something like a Stardew Valley, which is the best aspects of, the old Harvest Moon games. It's still original in many regards because it's their own take on it. And,
that in itself is a really good take, I think, too.
Yeah, I one of the funny things I think we talk about a lot is it's kind of like the Final Fantasy remake, where, like, if you go back to the original Final Fantasy VII and you look at the art and whatnot, and you're like, wow, this looks pretty aged by now. But then when you remember it in your head, it looks amazing. And so sometimes trying to make the game that you think you remember playing is pretty awesome. Like, try and imagine making GoldenEye right now. If you actually went and made GoldenEye, it'd be a terrible game by today's standards.
Yeah.
With its controls. Like, I went and played GoldenEye on the N64 last year at a friend's house, and I'm like, this is not good. Like, it's good, but like we've just established so many great game design rules for shooters and better controls that you try and go play GoldenEye and you're like, what is happening? I can't even move and aim, and I don't know what's going on, right? So sometimes just trying to make a game how you remember it feeling and being is pretty original in its own regard.
That's a really interesting point. I love that.
Did you ever play the Ocarina of Time remake for the 3DS?
Yes, I did.
Okay, did you ever have it where you're like, oh, I don't think they changed much, like this just looks exactly like the game, and then you go and look at Ocarina of Time and you're like, oh, they did a lot.
Yeah,
and
right?
You kind of remember it, like, as far as especially the art goes, you're like, oh, I remember it looking like this, but it doesn't. It looks pretty bad, right? So
I think
recently.
you do that
with game too. Yeah.
I did that recently with Fallout 76. They had this expansion come out, so I wanted to check it out. And I was playing through it like, this looks exactly like Fallout 3 did. Like, I'm surprised they didn't do more with the graphics. So then I went and looked up Fallout 3 and went, oh no, I just remember it wrong.
It's funny, right? Like, we remember things so fondly and in such better, I don't know, detail and stuff than they actually ever were, right? Our minds fill in all these blanks for the time, and then you just assume that's what it actually looked like. And then you go back and you're like, oh no.
It's like gamers' rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, totally, eh?
And use those goggles to make games with.
That's,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so last question then, coming from chat. If you could make any game ignoring project scope, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I would really love to make like a third-person adventure game, like an Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild. Just something character-focused with like a pretty big world. And I'm a big sucker for Nintendo games. Yeah. Like especially like the 3D Zelda games. I love the top-down Zelda games too. But that would be like my dream game. Is just like an awesome third-person adventure game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'd have a similar answer, actually. Me and a buddy are obsessed with a game, it's called Outward.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a third-person adventure game, kind of Breath of the Wild-ish. It's like, how did I describe it? It's like Divinity Original Sin meets Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Good timing though. We are out of time, so I just wanted to
Nice.
say thank you so much, Alex, for joining us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for beating 2 of the challenge levels. That's pretty impressive.
I'm very impressed. That was all Holly. That wasn't me at all.
Oh, thank you. I was not making faces, grunting, or like stabbing at the air at all.
The Pikachu meme. You just, "Ah!" the whole time. That was you.
There was a lot of. I was very offended by the boulders.
They're pretty offensive. I won't
Yeah,
lie.
very offensive. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. All right, so I just again thank you so much for joining us, Alex, and I am looking forward to hearing back from you guys to hear what you've
Awesome.
got on the plate.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you too. It was awesome watching you play. I haven't watched anyone play the game for a little while, so it was kind of
It's
like
always my pleasure to play this game. I probably do it more on stream now.
And it's a real treat to watch someone with my skills, my
That-
extremely high skill level playing games.
I'm not the one saying it this time.
You know
Oh.
what? I really enjoy watching people getting better at the game over the course of a few levels too, and that's always exciting. You know, where you play like cautiously, and then by the end you're just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going for it. I'm boosting. You know, and you were doing that, and that's pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a lot of fun
Stage
to play.
confidence.
All right,
Oh, thank you.
guys. If
Cool.
you're watching
Thanks a
on
lot.
Twitch, do the follow, do the social stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, also do the social stuff, and check out our Twitch channel because we're streaming on weekdays, mornings to afternoon.
Yep. And we'll also be posting a link to the game. So
Absolutely.
that you guys can hop on and buy it. And remember, Alex said if you wait a couple weeks, it'll actually be on sale. So,
But honestly, it's worth the full price anyway, and get the soundtrack.
yeah.
Sweet.
All
Cool.
right.
Appreciate it.
We'll talk to you soon, Alex.
Cool. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thank
Bye.
you. You too.